Evelyn Underhill put herself to, she studied and asked herself, what is mysticism? And it's a big undertaking. We're reading from page 35 on September 13th, Friday the 13th, with the full moon. It's Friday the 13th with the full moon, and it's been 13 years since the last one. The mystic life, therefore, involves the emergence from deep levels of man's transcendental self. Its capture. Need a marker. Its capture. Capture of the field of consciousness and the conversion of or rearrangement of his feeling, thought, and will, his character about this new center of life. We state then, as the condition of this chapter, that the objective of the mystic's adventure, seen from within, is the apprehension of or direct communion with that transcendental reality which we tried in the last section to define from without, as is the fulfillment of the highest. Earthly love, knowledge, and communion are the same thing. We must be one with bliss if we are to be aware of it, that aspect of our being by which we may attain this communion, that marrow of the soul. See, you can take all this stuff about mysticism and put it into your subconscious mind, and then when you have mystical experiences, you can better process the experience. Marrow of the soul, says Reisbeck calls it, usually lies below the threshold of our consciousness, but in certain natures of abnormal richness and vitality, under certain favorable conditions, it can be liberated by various devices, such as contemplation. I like the thing where they systemize the liberation by contemplation. It's like the Zen monks, they sit in meditation every morning and stuff. Once it has emerged, however, it takes up to help it in the work aspects of the conscious self. The surface must cooperate with the depths and at last merge with those depths to produce that unification of consciousness upon high levels which alone can put a term to man's unrest. The heart that longs for the all, the mind that conceives it, with the will that concentrates the whole self upon it, must all be called into play. The self must be surrendered. But it must not be annihilated. I thought it would be annihilated. Not be annihilated? I thought it would have to be annihilated. As some quietists have supposed. It only dies that it may live again. It only dies that it may live again. Supreme success, the permanent assurance of the mystic that we are more verily in heaven than in earth, says the Lady Julian in a passage which anticipates the classification of modern psychology, cometh of the natural love of our soul and of the clear light of our reason and the steadfast mind. But what is the order of precedence which these three activities are to assume in the work which is one? As all we have seen must do their part, for we are concerned with the response of man in his wholeness to the overwhelming attraction of God, but which shall predominate? Which shall predominate? The ultimate nature of the self's experience of reality will depend on the answer she gives to this question. What here are the relative values of mind and heart, which will bring her closest to the thought of God, the real life in which she is bathed, which fostered and made dominant is most likely to put her in harmony with the Absolute, the love of God, which is either in the heart and often on the lips of the saints, is the passionate desire for this harmony. The melody of thought, quote, unquote, melody of thought, unquote, is its intellectual equivalent. Though we may seem to escape God, we cannot escape some form of this craving, except at the price of utter stagnation. We go back, therefore, to the statement with which this chapter opened, that the two governing desires which share the prison of the self, we see them now as representing the cravings of the intellect and the emotions for the only end of all quest, the disciplined will, the cognitive power. With all the dormant faculties which it can wake and utilize, can come to the assistance of one of them, which, the question is a crucial one, for the destiny of the self depends on the partner which the will selects. Goodness, we finished.
Finish what?
Chapter on psychology. How could that be? We finished the chapter on psychology. The next chapter is the characteristics of mysticism. We had read the chapter on. This is a chapter on psychology. Goodness, it's so long. Mysticism and Psychology, number 3. We were reading from Mysticism. Evelyn Underhill. We're stopping with the ending of Mysticism and Psychology in Underhill, 12th edition.